Florida State got screwed. There are no two ways around that fact. While some out there, and in particular SEC country, have tried to claim that this was a case of FSU screwing themselves,
nor did Vince McMahon screw Bret Hart. I truly believe that Bret Hart screwed Bret Hart.
that is definitely not the case. FSU did not screw FSU. The College Football Playoff Committee screwed FSU here, much like Vince McMahon did screw Bret. Anyway, this committee decided it wanted an SEC team in the playoff field regardless, and then reverse engineered things from there. We need an SEC team. We can't pick Georgia because they lost to Alabama. That means we need Alabama. If we have Alabama, we can't have the playoff without Texas because then we would lose all credibility. I mean, it's not even that difficult to follow the train of thought here. It is a travesty and one that flies in the face of what the sport should be about. A meritocracy that settles things on the field, not the bank or a crappy airport hotel conference room. This decision to leave Florida State out of the college football playoff, it is the start of a much larger problem that the sport is going to face moving forward. Everyone says there won't be any issues with the college football playoff when the field expands from 4 teams to 12 next year. What? If this group, the committee, can't even select the clearly 4 best teams in the country, how in the world can anyone expect these losers to get things right when there are more sides to include in the playoff field? If we're being honest, their job over the past decade or so hasn't been that hard, and yet every year they either botch it or come close to botching it with some ridiculous decision. Now we're giving them more teams to choose with all of these at-large bids the 12-team field will allow for? The issue here with Florida State being left out of the college football playoff in 2023 or 24 is that it sets a terrible, awful, horrible, no good, disastrous precedent. Not just for this year. I mean, make no mistake, the Seminoles are getting the short end of the stick and it sucks for them, but that is in the past now. Looking forward is where things get exceptionally dicey. Just take a look at the teams ranked between 9th and 20th in the CFP rankings, the final edition just released. There is almost nothing between any of these programs. Ole Miss, Penn State, and Mizzou, they only have 2 losses, but none played in a conference championship game and probably aren't the best teams right now today. The same logic used to include Alabama and exclude Florida State from the Final Four this year. That is the most important thing to note in all of this. Wins and losses, they do not really matter. I mean, they matter to a certain extent, but it is not the end-all be-all. The only thing that really seems to matter is how this group of random administrators, washed-up coaches, and other people with some sort of loose connection to college football seem to think how a team is going to perform at a specific moment in time. The logic used to place Alabama and Texas in the CFP should, at least in theory, be used to give a side like Arizona a spot in an expanded playoff field. Of course, it's not going to work like that. I mean, we're not idiots here. We know what the deal is. What the College Football Committee has actually done is given itself a way to manipulate its selections in the future to ensure it can just cram the postseason with as many Big Ten and SEC schools as possible, while disregarding what actually happens on the field, where teams win, teams lose, we have results. None of that really matters. I mean, you need to win games, a certain number of games, I suppose. You can't be terrible, but this just opens up the Pandora's box of absolute nonsense when it comes to selecting what teams are going to make the playoffs in an expanded field. Do you really think for a second that this committee of idiots and morons and people who probably are on the take somewhere are going to do what's right, are going to pick programs and teams based on merit, based on what they accomplished in the season? Hell no. They are going to pick whatever programs they feel are going to generate money or are going to keep the Big Ten and SEC happy. Say what you will about the Bowl Championship Series, the good old BCS and its wonky computer program that seemed to have a boner for the Big 12 and in particular Nebraska. At least we knew what we were getting out of that. This nebulous committee of individuals that claim to be experts that know a lot about college football don't actually seem to know anything about college football though. You could take a collection of 11, 12, 13, 15 fans from off the street and they could get this right. You can talk about extenuating circumstances all you want. There is a reason we actually play the games. There is a reason why this committee doesn't just determine winners each week. There's a reason why we don't let groups of people say, well, this team looks better, so they're going to win this week and they're going to make the playoffs and so on and so forth. Games should be played on the field, and those results, what happens on the field, should be used to determine who makes the playoffs. End of story. The FSU snub here, it's just the start of something that's going to get worse and worse and worse when it comes to the college football playoff. This group of idiots is now going to be selecting more teams based on what criteria? They don't seem to know, apart from they like X team for reasons. That's not fair to the sport. That's not fair to fans. It's just a bunch of crap. In many ways, this is seemingly the perfect conclusion to a perfectly terrible season. I don't even want to say it was a terrible season though. I enjoy watching college football. I think there have been really good stories. And once you play the games on the field, all of this seems to dissipate. Yet in a year that has been marked by the absolute collapse of the Pac-12 because of greed and cheating in the Big Ten and a bunch of other nonsense, this is a feather in the cap of that craziness. I keep trying to think about what's the answer here, what's the solution, how can we avoid it? And of course, it's impossible to avoid. The college football playoff landscape has insulated itself, so it doesn't really actually have to address criticism or be responsible for the decisions it makes. The SEC, it just means more. More money for whatever is happening behind closed doors. I don't even know where all of this extra money is going to, but it's not going to a place that's helping college football. It's going to individuals like the College Football Playoff Committee who are responsible to no one and seemingly can make terrible decisions with no repercussions. When we look at the college football playoff, not this year when FSU has been screwed, but moving forward into a time of 12 teams, well, we're going to see a lot more nonsense like this because at the end of the day, the College Football Playoff Committee are going to squeeze out anyone who can take a slice of the pie from the Big Ten and the Southeastern Conference. What an absolute travesty this is today, and it's going to be in the future. Like, things are not looking up. Things are not going to be better with more teams. They're going to be worse when somehow 7-5 Mizzou or 6-6 Florida are placed in the playoff over well-deserving, well-qualified programs. It is an absolute ridiculous situation. That does it for me, Shine Hollis. This is the Touchback, and as always, hashtag take it out to the 25.